I knew my sister hated me. I just didn't know how far she would go. When she ripped the oxygen tube from my face in the hospital and told me to stop performing, I genuinely thought I was going to die. My lungs were already drowning. The room spun. Alarms started screaming. And my parents? They just stood there. My mother wrung her hands and said, "Taylor, you make everything dramatic." My father didn't even look at me. He stared at the floor like there was something fascinating down there, something more important than his daughter choking on air that wouldn't come. None of them saw the shadow in the doorway. None of them realized my boyfriend, Ethan, had come back from overseas early, straight from the airport, still wearing his uniform, duffel bag dropped at his feet. They had no idea what was coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. I grew up being treated as the fragile one. Asthma, lung infections, emergency rooms that became as familiar as my own bedroom. Every winter felt like a countdown to the next collapse. Meanwhile, my sister, Jenna, was the golden child. Healthy, athletic, pretty, adored by everyone who met her. She never let me forget it. In school, she would whisper loud enough for others to hear, "Taylor wants attention." That's her whole personality. My parents laughed it off. They thought it was sibling rivalry, harmless teasing. I learned to go quiet. Quiet when I was short of breath. Quiet when I was coughing until I saw stars. Quiet when I passed out on the bathroom floor at 14 and woke up 2 hours later, alone, with a bruise blooming across my temple. Jenna told everyone I fainted because I liked drama. The truth? I almost died that day. No one cared. Not until now. It began 2 weeks before the hospital incident. Our grandfather died. He was the only person in the family who showed softness toward me. He would bring me warm tea during my worst coughing fits, rub my back in slow circles, and say, "You breathe, kid. I'll sit right here." He had money. A lot of it. Properties scattered across 3 states, investments that had compounded for decades, and a mountain cabin in Montana that looked like it belonged on a postcard. Everyone assumed everything would go to Jenna. Even Jenna assumed. She was already spending it in her head, planning trips to Paris, talking about the car she'd buy, the condo she'd renovate. At the funeral, she squeezed my arm hard enough to bruise and whispered, "Don't embarrass us by coughing during the service." I smiled and said nothing. But inside, something finally snapped. 3 days later, I collapsed while walking from the kitchen to my room. Lungs full of fluid. Blue around the mouth. Ethan was still deployed overseas. My parents took me to the hospital, annoyed, like I was interrupting their week. My mother told the nurse, "She's very sensitive. She gets like this when she's stressed." My chest felt like a boulder was sitting on it, crushing down with every failed breath. They put me on oxygen. I drifted in and out of consciousness, the world going fuzzy at the edges. Until I woke up to shouting. Jenna was there, standing over my hospital bed, shaking her head in disgust like I'd just committed some unforgivable sin. "Are you serious?" she hissed. "You're doing this for attention before the will reading." I tried to speak but couldn't. The oxygen mask was the only thing keeping me tethered to consciousness. She reached down and grabbed the tube. Time slowed. I saw her fingers wrap around the plastic. I saw the determination in her eyes. I saw my mother take a half step forward, not to stop her, but to see what would happen. And then she ripped it out. I gasped. My body convulsed. My hands clawed at the air, searching for something, anything, to pull breath back into my lungs. "Stop faking it," Jenna said coldly. "You just want sympathy." My parents were right behind her, watching like I was a street performer putting on a show. My mom whispered, "Jenna, sweetie, maybe put it back." But she didn't move. I choked. My vision blurred. The world was closing in, turning grey at the edges. And then I heard a voice from the doorway. A voice that froze everyone in place. "Touch her again, and I'll escort you out myself." Ethan. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his boots heavy on the tile floor. He fixed the tube back into place with steady hands, hit the emergency alarm, and within seconds nurses rushed in like a flood. Jenna tried to laugh it off. We were just playing. Ethan didn't look at her. He looked at me. Deep, steady, protective. His jaw was tight, his eyes dark with something I'd never seen before. My parents stared at him like he was a stranger who just walked into their home uninvited. "Who are you two?" my father started. "I'm the person who loves her," Ethan said quietly. "And I've heard the stories. I believed them. Until now." The nurses checked my vitals, adjusted the oxygen flow, asked questions. My mother answered them in a syrupy voice, playing the concerned parent. Ethan stayed silent. But his hand never left mine. Jenna stood in the corner, arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd orchestrated the whole thing just to humiliate her. When the nurses left, my mother tried to approach the bed. Ethan stepped between us. "I think you should go," he said. "Excuse me." My father's voice rose. "This is our daughter." "Then act like it," Ethan said. The silence that followed was suffocating. They left. All three of them. Jenna shot me one last look of pure venom before the door swung shut. I spent 5 days in the hospital. Ethan never left. He fed me ice chips. He combed my hair. He read to me when I was too tired to keep my eyes open. He told me, "I came back early because I had a bad feeling. I don't know why. I just knew I needed to be here." I braced myself, waiting for him to leave like everyone else eventually did. He didn't. Meanwhile, across town, Jenna was fuming. She needed the inheritance. Her credit cards were maxed out. She was living well above her means, maintaining a lifestyle she couldn't afford. But grandfather knew. He once told me, "Jenna wants. You need. There's a difference." The day of the will reading arrived like a storm on the horizon. My stomach was tight with nerves. Ethan wore a dark suit, the kind that made him look older, more serious. I leaned on him as we entered the attorney's office downtown, a sleek building with glass walls and marble floors. Jenna sat in the front row like a queen waiting for her crown. My parents flanked her on either side, a united front. They didn't acknowledge me when I walked in. The attorney, Mr. Lawrence, was a man in his 60s with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He shuffled papers, cleared his throat, and began. "Thank you all for coming. We are here to execute the last will and testament of Thomas Montgomery, who passed on November 3rd. Jenna's smile widened. She sat forward, hands folded neatly in her lap. Mr. Lawrence adjusted his glasses. Thomas was very specific about his wishes. "Let's begin." The first shock came immediately. Thomas has donated half of his estate to the Children's Lung Foundation and the Veterans Recovery Fund. Jenna's jaw dropped. "What?" The room went quiet. My mother's hand flew to her chest. "He donated it," my father stammered. "Correct," Mr. Lawrence said calmly. "That amounts to approximately $4 million. Jenna sputtered. But that's, why would he?" Mr. Lawrence continued without pausing. "The remaining assets, including all investment accounts, have been placed in a trust." "A trust?" Jenna's voice cracked. "Managed by who?" "By someone Mr. Montgomery personally selected. We'll get to that." The tension in the room was suffocating. Jenna looked like she might combust. "The property in Denver goes to Thomas's son, Jacob," Mr. Lawrence read. "The vintage car collection goes to Thomas's nephew, Calvin." My father leaned forward. "And the cabin?" "The cabin. The Montana mountain retreat that Jenna had already told half her friends she was inheriting. The place she'd picked out furniture for in her mind." Mr. Lawrence looked up. "The Montana cabin, along with the 10 surrounding acres, goes to Taylor Montgomery." Silence. My mother gasped. My father blinked like he didn't understand the words. Jenna leaned forward. "What?" Grandpa knew she couldn't even climb stairs without wheezing. I felt Ethan's hand squeeze mine. Mr. Lawrence kept reading, unbothered. "Additionally, the trust containing the remaining investments, stocks, and liquid assets will be managed by—" Jenna interrupted. "Me. Obviously. I'm the oldest. I'm the responsible one. I've always—" "Ethan Cole." The room exploded. Jenna shrieked. "He's not even family." My parents erupted in protest. "This is absurd," my mother cried. "He's a stranger. He's manipulated her." Ethan stood up. Calm. Precise. His movements were controlled, almost military in their discipline. He walked toward Jenna. Everyone froze. He placed one hand gently on her shoulder. No one breathed. He looked her directly in the eyes and said 6 words that would echo in that room forever. I saw what you did, Jenna. Her face drained of color. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mother's voice was shrill. What are you talking about? Mr. Lawrence reached into his briefcase and pulled out a tablet. Mr. Montgomery requested this be shown if there was any dispute. He pressed play. The screen lit up with grainy hospital security footage. The timestamp in the corner read 3 days ago. The camera angle showed my hospital room from above, capturing everything in cold, clinical detail. There I was, lying in the bed, oxygen tube in place, monitors beeping steadily. And there was Jenna, walking in with my parents behind her. The audio crackled to life. Jenna's voice, sharp and accusatory. Are you serious? You're doing this for attention before the will reading. On screen, I tried to respond but couldn't. The mask covered most of my face. Then Jenna reached down. Her hand wrapped around the oxygen tube. She yanked it out. My body convulsed on the bed. My hands clawed at the air. The monitors started screaming. And Jenna's voice, clear as day, stop faking it. You just want sympathy. My mother's whisper, Jenna, sweetie, maybe put it back. But she didn't move. She stood there, watching me choke. The video continued for another 15 seconds before Ethan burst into frame, fixing the tube, hitting the alarm. Mr. Lawrence paused the video. The silence in the office was deafening. My father stood up, his face pale. Jenna, what is this? Jenna stumbled backward. No, that's not, I didn't mean. You could have killed her, Ethan said quietly. His voice wasn't angry. It was worse than that. It was disappointed, like he'd expected better from humanity and had been proven wrong. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. Oh my God. Jenna tried to lunge toward the table where the documents lay. This is fake. He edited it. He's trying to turn you against me. Security, who'd been standing by the door, stepped forward. Please step back, one of them said firmly. Mr. Lawrence cleared his throat. There's more. He pulled out a handwritten letter. The paper was yellowed at the edges, my grandfather's shaky handwriting immediately recognizable. Thomas wrote this 2 weeks before his death. He asked that it be read aloud in the event of any contestation. He began to read. To my family. If you're hearing this, it means someone challenged my wishes. I expected as much. I've watched for years as Taylor struggled to breathe, struggled to be seen, struggled to matter to any of you. I've watched Jenna take and take and take, never once asking if anyone else needed anything. I've watched you, my son, and you, my daughter-in-law, enable cruelty in the name of keeping peace. So I made a choice. I gave control to the one person who showed up when it mattered. Ethan came home early from deployment because he had a feeling something was wrong. He was right. The footage you just watched was given to me by hospital security after I made a formal request. I saw what happened. I saw my granddaughter nearly die at the hands of her own sister. And I saw all of you do nothing. To Ethan, who shows kindness, you are the caretaker of what I built. Taylor breathes because you care. That is enough. To everyone else, you had chances. Thousands of them. You chose your comfort over her life. This is my final choice. The letter ended. No one spoke. Jenna was escorted out, still protesting, still claiming it was a misunderstanding. My parents sat frozen, unable to look at me. The drive home was silent. Ethan drove his old Chevy Silverado, the one he'd had since high school, the one that smelled like pine air freshener and leather. I stared out the window, watching Denver fade behind us as we headed toward the mountains. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Text after text. Jenna, you manipulated Grandpa. You're pathetic. My mother, we need to talk about this. You're tearing this family apart. My father, call me. I turned my phone off. You okay? Ethan asked quietly. I didn't know how to answer that. Was I okay? I just inherited a cabin and watched my family implode in real time. I'd seen proof of my sister's cruelty. I'd heard my grandfather's final words, words that validated every lonely, gasping moment of my childhood. "I don't know," I whispered. Ethan reached over and took my hand. "You don't have to be okay right now." We drove for another hour before the cabin came into view. It sat nestled against the mountains, surrounded by pine trees and aspens that turned gold in the fall. Smoke curled from the chimney. Ethan had arranged for someone to prep it before we arrived. Inside, it was exactly as I remembered. Wooden beams across the ceiling. A stone fireplace. Grandfather's reading chair in the corner, the leather worn smooth from years of use. I sank into that chair and finally let myself cry. Ethan didn't try to fix it. He sat on the floor beside me, his hand on my knee, and let me break. I cried for the little girl who couldn't breathe and was told she was exaggerating. I cried for every emergency room visit where I apologized for being sick. I cried for the sister I'd wanted, the one who would have held my hand instead of ripping out my oxygen. When the tears finally stopped, Ethan spoke. "He saw you," he said. "Your grandfather. He saw you when nobody else did. Why didn't he say something sooner?" I asked, my voice raw. Why did he wait until he was gone? "Maybe he thought they'd change," Ethan said. "Maybe he hoped." They didn't. No, they didn't. I looked around the cabin, at the life my grandfather had built here. He'd spent his last years in this place, surrounded by peace. He'd wanted that for me. What do I do with all of this? I asked. The trust, the money, the cabin. I don't know how to. "You breathe," Ethan said simply. "You heal. The rest will figure itself out." Over the next few weeks, I learned to exist in the quiet. I walked the property, even when my lungs protested. I sat on the porch at sunrise with a blanket wrapped around me, watching the mountains stretch across the skyline. Ethan managed the trust with a financial advisor grandfather had recommended. He made sure I had everything I needed, never once acting like the money was his to control. My parents called once. My mother cried, apologized, said she didn't know it had gotten that bad. I didn't call back. Jenna sent lawyers. They found nothing. Grandfather's will was airtight. Eventually, the calls stopped. Eventually, it was just me and Ethan and the mountains. And for the first time in my life, I could breathe. 3 months later, my mother showed up unannounced. I was in the garden behind the cabin, planting wildflower seeds that probably wouldn't survive the altitude, but that I wanted to try anyway. Ethan was in town getting supplies. I heard the car before I saw it. A silver Lexus, out of place against the dirt road and pine trees. My mother stepped out, overdressed in heels and a cream-colored coat. "Taylor," she said, like we'd just seen each other yesterday. I stood slowly, brushing dirt from my jeans. "Mom. You look good," she said. "Healthy." I didn't respond. She glanced around at the cabin, the mountains, the garden. "This place is beautiful. I can see why Dad loved it. What do you want?" I asked. Her face crumpled. I wanted to apologize. Properly. Not over the phone. I waited. "I didn't know," she said. "I didn't know it was that bad. I thought you were. I thought. You thought I was exaggerating," I finished. "You thought I liked the attention." "Yes," she whispered. "And I was wrong. I was so wrong, Taylor. When I saw that video, when I heard what Jenna said, Where were you?" I interrupted. "When she ripped out my oxygen, where were you?" "I was right there." I told her to stop. "No," I said firmly. "You told her to put it back." Sweetly. Like she'd borrowed my sweater without asking. "You didn't protect me. You never protected me." She started crying. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at this woman who'd given birth to me, who'd raised me, who'd watched me suffocate and called it dramatics. "I don't forgive you," I said. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "Maybe someday," I continued. "But not today. Not yet." "What can I do?" she asked desperately. How can I make this right? You can't, I said. That's the thing, Mom. Some things can't be fixed with an apology. She stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded. Okay, I understand. She turned to leave, then stopped. Your sister is getting help. Therapy. She's struggling with what she did. Good, I said. She should struggle. My mother got back in her Lexus and drove away. Ethan came home an hour later and found me still in the garden, sitting in the dirt. You okay? He asked. My mom was here, I said. He sat down beside me. What did she want? Forgiveness. Did you give it to her? No. He nodded. Good. We sat there as the sun dipped below the mountain peaks, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Do you think I'm being too harsh? I asked. No, Ethan said. I think you're being honest. That's harder. I leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around me. Thank you, I whispered. For coming back early. For seeing what they wouldn't. I'll always come back, he said. That's the deal. What deal? The one where I love you, he said simply. That's the whole deal. 1 year later. I'm sitting on the porch of the cabin, wrapped in a wool blanket, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of gold and amber. The air is cool and thin, the kind that used to make me panic, the kind that used to send me reaching for an inhaler. But I'm breathing. Steady. Deep. Full breaths that fill my lungs completely. Ethan is inside making coffee. I can hear him humming, off-key and cheerful, the sound drifting through the open window. The trust is doing well. Ethan and the financial advisor invested wisely, and we've been able to donate to lung disease research, veterans programs, children's hospitals. The things grandfather cared about. The things I care about now too. I haven't spoken to Jenna since the will reading. I heard through extended family that she moved to California, started over. I hope she's better. I hope she's changed. But I don't need to know. My parents and I have a fragile truce. We exchange texts on holidays. They came to the cabin once, awkward and apologetic, and I let them stay for dinner. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's something. Maybe that's enough. Ethan comes out with 2 mugs of coffee, handing me one before sitting in the chair beside mine. What are you thinking about? He asks. Those 6 words, I say. The ones you said to Jenna. I saw what you did, Jenna, he recites. Why those words? I ask. You could have said anything. Yelled, threatened, made a scene. He thinks for a moment, staring out at the mountains. Because the truth was enough. She knew what she'd done. I just needed her to know that someone else knew too. That she couldn't hide anymore. I nod slowly. It changed everything. No, Ethan says gently. Your grandfather changed everything. He saw who you were and made sure you'd be taken care of. I was just the messenger. You were more than that, I say. You stayed. He looks at me, his eyes soft. Of course I stayed. We sit in comfortable silence as the sun climbs higher. A hawk circles overhead. The wind rustles through the aspens. I think about the girl I used to be. The one who apologized for needing oxygen. The one who made herself small so others would be comfortable. The one who thought she was weak. I was never weak. I was never exaggerating. I just needed someone to stay. Ethan stayed. And that made all the difference. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I glance at it. A text from the Lung Foundation thanking me for the recent donation, telling me how many kids it will help. Kids who can't breathe. Kids who are told they're being dramatic. Kids who need someone to believe them. I smile and put the phone away. Ready for breakfast? Ethan asks. Yeah, I say, standing up. My lungs expand fully, easily. I'm ready. We head inside together, leaving the blanket draped over the chair, the coffee mugs on the porch railing. The mountains stand silent and strong behind us. And I breathe. I finally, fully breathe.